Red Overalls, written by Burakoff, illustrated by Izzy Bean. Little Red Overalls. Once upon a time on a farm far away, there lived a sweet and cheery young woman. This adorable little girl always had a smile on her face and was loved by everyone, especially her grandmother. The girl's grandmother made her a pair of red overalls, which she wore whenever she went out. All of the villagers called her Little Red Overalls, or Little Red for short. Every weekend, Little Red went to the berry patch with her grandmother, who taught her how to find the ripest, sweetest berries in the patch, and how to avoid berries that were too ripe or not yet ready to be picked. After filling their baskets, Little Red and her grandmother used the berries to bake pies and make jams and jellies. One day, when Little Red's grandmother was sick, Little Red wanted to visit her. "You may go to Grandma's house," said Mother, "but you must promise me that you will stay on the path and that you will not speak to strangers." "I promise to stay on the path, and I promise not to speak to strangers," Little Red replied. And with that, she went merrily on her way. Little Red strolled along the path until she arrived at the berry patch, where she saw ripe berries glistening in the sunlight. She wandered into the patch and began to fill her basket with delicious berries. All of a sudden, a huge wolf walked right up to Little Red and asked her in as friendly a voice as he could muster, "What are you doing here all alone, little girl?" Little Red forgot about her promise not to speak to strangers. "I am picking fresh berries to bring to Grandma's house," she answered. "Well, if that is so," replied the wolf, "you should go deeper into the berry patch. That's where you'll find the ripest berries." "Thank you," Little Red cheerfully replied, and she headed further into the patch. Meanwhile, the wolf ran to Grandma's house and knocked lightly on the door. "Hello, dear. Please come in," shouted Grandma, thinking that it was Little Red at the door. The wolf entered the house, tiptoed over to Grandma, scooped her up, and locked her in the closet. Then he put on one of her nightgowns, slid into her bed, and waited for Little Red to arrive. As the wolf waited, the most wonderful smell wafted into the bedroom. He hopped out of bed and followed the smell into the kitchen, where he found fresh-baked berry pies cooling on the windowsill. The wolf scarfed down the pies until his belly was full. Then he crawled into bed and fell asleep with berry pie dripping down his chin. When Little Red arrived at Grandma's house, she walked inside. Something about her grandma seemed different. "What big ears you have, Grandma," said Little Red as she approached the bed. The wolf, fast asleep after eating all the fresh-baked treats, snored loudly. "And what a big mouth you have," Little Red said as she got closer. The wolf continued to snore. "And what big teeth you have," Little Red said when she reached the side of the bed. The sight of the wolf's fangs sent Little Red stumbling backwards. She knocked over a vase, and the sound of the shattering glass awakened the wolf. Little Red ran out of the bedroom and into the kitchen. She picked up a pie tin from the windowsill and threw it at the wolf's face. The pie tin, covered in thick and sticky berry pie filling, stuck to the wolf's face and covered his eyes and ears. Next, Little Red picked up a jam jar and shoved it over the wolf's mouth. The jar, which had thick and sticky berry jam lining its sides, stuck to the wolf's mouth and kept it locked shut. The wolf was unable to see, hear, or smell anything through the thick and sticky jam. He ran around the house and bumped into wall after wall until he finally escaped through the front door. Then Little Red heard a banging noise coming from the closet. She opened the closet door and Grandma happily emerged, giving Little Red a grateful hug. From that day on, Little Red Overalls never wandered off the path and never stopped to speak to strangers. Every weekend she met her grandmother at the berry patch to pick delicious ripe berries and make the sweetest and tastiest treats. They lived very happily ever after. The end.